I'm here today with Steven Charleston. Steven is a leading voice of justice for indigenous peoples, the environment, and spiritual renewal in North America. A member of the Choctaw Nation, Steven has appeared on ABC World News Tonight, BBC World News, the News Hour with Jim Lehrer, and other outlets. The author of more than a dozen books, he served as the Episcopal Bishop of Alaska, President and Dean of the Episcopal Divinity School, and Professor at Luther Seminary. Steven lives with his wife, Susan, in Oklahoma and writes daily meditations on social media, which reach thousands of people. So, Steven, it's really an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you, man. It's great to be with you, too.
So, Steven's got a new book that's just come out called Ladder to the Light, an Indigenous Elders' Meditations on Hope and Courage. And I want to talk about that in a little bit more detail. But before we get to that, Steven, maybe you could just give us a little bit more, depth in terms of your background.
Sure, I'll be brief. It's a story that begins really here in my home community in Oklahoma. That's where I'm originally from. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation. We're one of the 5 tribes that some people may have heard of us from the Trail of Tears. We were living in the southern part of the United States in the 1830s. When we were forcibly removed by Andrew Jackson, and that's where the Trail of Tears comes in, because we were marched to Oklahoma, which, interestingly enough, Oklahoma is, in our Choctaw language, means red people. So it was the land for all those who were being driven out. It was like a refugee center. And a lot of people, native people from different parts of the eastern seaboard, were moved into Oklahoma. So I grew up here and was raised both with Native tradition and also with Christian theology. So I started at an early age being interested in spirituality and in religion, and those 2 elements of my life, my culture as a Native person and my community or in Christianity around me in those years in Oklahoma. So that sort of was the place I've come from. Since then, as you said when you introduced me, I've done lots of different things in the life of the Episcopal Church, but the most important part of it was that all of the things I did gave me a chance to be in different Native communities. So I was fortunate enough to, because of the nature of my work, to learn from Native people all across North America and to visit their communities, meet the elders, talk to people, and learn from them. So I think that was one of the greatest benefits from my experience to date, has been that connection to different Native people.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, having been able to, serve in Alaska and all the different seminary positions and things like that, in different parts of the country, that's just really had to have been amazing experiences.
Yeah, it really was. And for me, and I think I knew early on that my vocation was going to be in spirituality, in the church, in some form of religious life. So that's what accounts for all the different things I've done. I sort of got involved in the academic side of it for a while because I think I'm eternally curious. And academics are curious people. You can't let it alone. You want to keep going, keep thinking, keep asking the next question. So that's been an important part of my journey too.
So before we get to the new book, could you tell us a little bit about the previous books that you've written?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And again, it's a strange story. I'm sort of a reluctant writer in this sense. And by that, I mean, about 10 years ago or more, there were a group of 4 people who wanted me to get on Facebook. And I was a curmudgeon who did not want to be on social media. I'm old school, and I didn't think I had anything to contribute on social media. And so I resisted. Finally, they got me into it, and I got into Facebook as my first social media encounter, and didn't know what to do after I'd signed up. And I was sitting there looking at a blank screen thinking, what do I say? And that's where I made the connection to write down every day on my Facebook wall just some little thought that came to me after my morning prayers. Because being a faithful person, you in the morning you wake up with God and you're praying, and then whatever would come into my mind, I would try and write down. And though at first only those 4 people read it, but little by little more people would come, and all my writing was simply, if you will, it's almost the reply I received to my prayer. I would pray and then I would be quiet and just let my mind be still and open my heart receptively to God to see if there's some echo coming back to me, is there something for me to think about? And sure enough, those little messages that began to appear seemed to speak to more and more and more people. So they wanted me after the first year of doing them every day except Saturday, because on Saturday we pray. But they wanted collections of them. And so my first book was a collection of those meditations.
Okay.
And I first went to publishers and said, would you be interested? And nobody seemed interested. So I self-published that. So some of those books you mentioned, of the 10 or 12 books, it's been incredible. All of those books come out of these little meditations or messages, and they've sold thousands of copies all around the world. It's been very gratifying on that front. The other books I've done, the 4 Vision Quests of Jesus. That book, the 4 Vision Quests of Jesus, was a theology, an academic theology, one that I wrote as a Native American theologian, about the Christian gospel based on Native tradition. And that book has been in print now for quite a number of years and is still used in seminaries and universities and by clergy and laity alike.
Very cool. Well, how did this latest book come about? Because this one you published with Broadleaf Books.
Right. That's right. The 4 Vision Quest of Jesus is published by Morehouse, and my latest book is from Broadleaf. This latest book really emerged, I think, in the cauldron of what we've been living through for the past several years, but certainly once the pandemic took hold. And that enormous struggle that everyone has been going through in trying to get through the pandemic, and political crises and economic meltdown and global dislocations. It's been a terrible time for so many people around the world. Like others, I wanted to do something. And my gift was just the visions and the messages that I get in prayer. So I turned to those to see if there's a way that they could help people. And I discovered that there was a theme, a pattern that was moving through years worth of these little visions and messages I've been working on every morning, that there was a theme there that could help people, that had some practical spiritual help for people. It was a contribution I could make that would help men and women of any faith tradition, because my books are not written for any particular audience other than to say anyone with a spiritual curiosity and interest. When you read any one of my books, whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Baha'i, whatever, or none of the above, you can read my books and find yourself in them, because the way that they're written, the language, they're very accessible to people of all faith traditions. So a very central part of my work is an interfaith, interreligious community, trying to build bridges of understanding among all people. So my book was an attempt to spiritually offer a clear vision of how people could help themselves and help others in this great time of trouble we've been experiencing.
Well, it's a really fascinating approached the way that you've organized this book around the kiva and the ladder to the light, as the title indicates. Could you explain for folks that don't know what a kiva is?
Yep, be happy to. In the opening of the book, I began with the explanation of the kiva. Like all of my writing, the roots of my writing and my spirituality are embedded in the Native American tradition or experience, and from different nations, different places. Native culture is very diverse, and so there are many different traditions that you can turn to. But the one that I felt expressed our situation in this time and place was the kiva. The kiva is a worship site, like a church. Like you walk into a church, you're in a sacred space. The kiva is like that in the sense it's a sacred space, but it's one that is under the ground. In other words, it's a round or rectangular structure underground with wooden beams across the top, and it's covered. And the only way to get down into the kind of the womb-like place of the kiva is to come down a ladder. It's like entering a submarine, where you always see the captain coming down the ladder to get into the submarine. A kiva is like that. You go down the ladder, and if you don't have a fire in the kiva, it's nothing but kind of a cool darkness. And above you, you see the light. That, to me, is what captured me, that physical image of the kiva that I had been in and experienced and seen, is a metaphor for where we are in our lives. We feel that we have been through a lot of dark times. The darkness seems to be all around us. The COVID-19 virus was a darkness gathering around us, enveloping us, and financial breakdown and political breakdown and social breakdown. The darkness just kept growing. So we felt we're in a darkness. The important thing about a kiva is that the kiva is a darkness that is nurturing and that is strengthening. In other words, we began our journey in life within the womb. We are enclosed and we're not sure what's next. But there is a spiritual path, that ladder that leads up out of the kiva back into the light. That was the metaphor I used, because each rung on that ladder is a different step we can take to move from darkness into light and into hope and peace and healing.
Well, I think it's a really cool metaphor, and an analogy. And the book is organized into rungs of the ladder. So the rung of faith, the rung of blessing, the rung of hope, and it keeps going up the ladder. So
that's right.
I just thought that was really a wonderful way to, organize the book and your visions and your path.
I think the way that the book is structured is very simple. It just, like you were just describing, each rung of the ladder is a different chapter. It moves from different parts of a spiritual life. In other words, to begin with faith. What's the first rung in your life to move forward in a spiritual way is you have to know what you believe in. You have to have faith in something. So it's very simple and it's very universal. But each rung can be a place where the reader can stop, and that each rung or each chapter gives you a lot to think about. And so you can spend time in each chapter. I have people tell me that when they read The Ladder to the Light, they will pause and really reflect on what one chapter means before they pick it up and read it again for the next chapter. So it's a book, I think, that allows people a way to understand where they are in their spiritual lives and feel that there's another step forward that's going to help them, and most importantly, help other people too.
Well, it's really a fascinating book, and I've loved it. Let me read what Barbara Brown Taylor had to say about it. She says, "This book touched me as few do. Steven Charleston is a spiritual medic who has given himself to a life of healing, and you will want to share his medicine with everyone you know. What a wonderful endorsement.
Yes, wasn't that nice? It was really, really kind of Barbara to say that, and I'm very grateful. Um, I think that anyone, like I say, of any faith tradition, if they feel like they've been through a difficult time in their life and they want to really be proactive in a spiritual response of hope and justice and goodness, then Ladder to the Light will help them do that. It's the way that it's constructed. I described it as if you're a movie fan. Some people love old movies and motion pictures. And if you're kind of a movie person, there are copies of movies that come out that have the director's dialogue or narrative on the movie itself. So you can watch one of your favorite movies, but you're hearing the director explaining the making of the movie. So now in this scene, we were shooting this is what was happening, what we were talking about. And it's this fascinating way to see both the final product, the movie, and the process behind the scenes. My book is sort of like that. In other words, it is my own behind the scenes way of talking about how a certain message that I received, how it could be interpreted, or what it could mean to us and what it's trying to tell us. And the is the way that the meditation or the little message first came to me. So you'll find these little messages, these spiritual visions written, and then a commentary about them, and then another vision and a commentary about that, and another vision and a commentary about that. So it sort of flows from the visionary to the pragmatic, and it has this wonderful balance. So if you like a practical theology or spirituality, this would be the book for you. But if you like visionary, mystical understandings of life, this could also be the book for you.
Absolutely. And each one of these reflections is so thought-provoking, which I'm sure was, what you were striving for. But boy, it's some deep thought. And here's just another blurb from Caitlin Curtis. Ladder to the Light isn't a book to be read once and put aside, but one that should be read again and again, becoming part of our human journey. So I think that was a great way to describe this as well. It's just that I think every time you read some of these, it's probably going to cause different thoughts, for each of us to find.
Oh, I think it will, absolutely. Because the interesting thing is I've often said that while I have written all the books I've written, I'm not necessarily the author. There's a difference, and it's important to think about that, because those little visions you read in my book came to me with as much surprise and mystery and power as they do for other people who read them. I encounter and engage these messages as much as any other reader. I'm in the same place with any other reader because I believe the source of them is a healing and loving source that is what I sometimes describe as the kindness at the center of creation. It is this conscious presence that in my books I refer to as the spirit. And people can use that language any way that for them, meaning that whatever your higher power, whatever God is for you, or your spirituality takes you, it is speaking to how the reality of that presence, that divine, sacred, and loving presence is real. And so I engage with it as much as anyone who reads my books does, and is healed by it, as I hope I'm helping to heal others.
Well, as you've found from your, Facebook posts, that's certainly the case. A lot of folks have been impacted by your work, and I think that just speaks volumes.
And I must tell you, I never take it for granted. I'm always grateful. That Facebook community, we went from 4 people to over 26,000 now. who gather to read the messages every day. They come out every day, except, like I say, on the Saturday when I invite us, whoever we are, to pray for each other. I think that's a wonderful thing to do, without regard to what tradition you're from or what you believe. Just the idea that human beings can love one another, and what a message that is for our time.
What a concept.
Yes.
Highly needed these days.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, I'll include a link to, your Facebook page in, along with the video on our website. So, Steven, it's such a pleasure to meet you, to speak with you, and to learn from you. Thank you very much for this book and for your posts, your visions, your reflections, and all the work that you've done. It's just really helpful to so many.
Well, thank you too, and for all that you do. I'm very honored to be a part of the work that you're doing, which is helping a lot of people too. And I think it's by what you and I are experiencing right now, just how we can network together, connect together, share a message together. The more that network grows, the more people that respond to the work that you're doing, the stronger we'll be and the healthier. So thank you for what you do too.
Well, thank you so much, Steven. It's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you.